Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, and today is episode number 100 of this series, and so therefore, it is our 100th Grand Prix as a team. Now, in the past on previous F1 games, I've not really cared too much about this kind of milestone because we've moved around teams. There's no real significance to it, but on this year's game, of course, it's our own team. It's aarava Archer Racing, so we have actually got to a whole 100 Grand Prix in the same team, in our own team, and so I thought it's a cause for celebration. So we've got a slightly tweaked livery for this race upcoming at the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. You'll see some 100 Grand Prix stickering around, and also quite nice little nod to the original neon yellow green color scheme we had at the very start and had for most of this series. We've got a nod to that as the engine cover streak on the top, and also just around the halo is going to be back to that, you know, classic neon yellow that is pretty much the team colors. It's the reason why the team badge is still that neon yellow. I know a few of you have been asking why I didn't change that. It's because that's the identity of the team. The identity of my team is white on that neon yellow, obviously as inspired by the Brawn GP livery, i.e. obviously because of my favorite F1 driver being Jenson Button. So that's why the logo stayed put like that. And so that's why we've done a little one-off little twist for this race, for this episode, as it's Grand Prix number 100 for the team. But anyway, getting into this then, quite fitting actually, being the 100th episode, it's quite a juicy one. We've actually got a lot to talk about before we even get to the race weekend, because we've got so many upgrades coming to the car, HQ facilities and also R&D wise as well. So literally in the following day after the Bahrain Grand Prix last episode, we got a load of the upgrades that we actually purchased at the very start of the season, those 3 minor upgrades. We're going to go ahead and purchase a further 3 minor ones, so that will leave us only 1 small little minor upgrade left to do on the engine side, obviously minusing the kind of ones that we get from Mercedes. Obviously the small little icons there you can see in the middle of your screen that I'm kind of cycling through, those come naturally from our power unit supplier, obviously being Mercedes for this season. Due to the fact we changed engine supplier, that got reset, of course, so we're having to wait. So kind of like in real life, in a way, there is a little bit of an advantage that the Mercedes Works team are getting right now, in terms of they've already got a leap ahead. They've already got those extra upgrades on their car, I believe. So we're going to have to play a bit of catch up on the engine side of things, but these 3 upgrades coming in before this episode will already be a major bridge to that gap. And the same thing can be said of the chassis side of things. We've still got a few pending, but we're going to go ahead and purchase the brake upgrades as well, because I said a lot of the time last episode during the Bahrain race that our brakes were just not up to scratch, because those got reset and the chassis R&D reset obviously into this season. The braking power, the stopping power was so poor. Like, so many times I was misjudging when I had to brake, and I was braking too late because the car simply couldn't slow down in time, and that caused some issues around Sakir. So hopefully now, going towards Zandvoort with a few of those brake upgrades on the car and further weight reduction and redistribution upgrades coming to the car, hopefully it should feel a little bit better. We won't fully max out that side of the tree, neither the engine, as I said, quite yet, but we're getting very, very close already. Like I said, only a few episodes, and I think a lot of us, not just me, our rivals, McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, they'll all have maxed out cars within the next few episodes, I would say, because even though we had a regulation change, all of us had so much time to, you know, build up R&D points over that winter break because we had maxed out cars for most of last season. So as we go through the activity timeline and go through the timeline before the Dutch Grand Prix, you'll see in the background there, we've got all those upgrades now on the car, as well as also the HQ facility upgrades that came in as well. So quite nicely, the 100th Grand Prix, a big milestone for the team, for the very first time that we can celebrate in the F1 game like this. It's a big episode in terms of 3 HQ facility upgrades on the engine side, chassis and aero, and they're near enough maxing out the engine. We've got 1 last upgrade, like I said, and then the kind of natural Mercedes upgrades that we'll get from Mercedes themselves, and then we've got a couple of chassis upgrades left, but we've done some major work. I mean, look at this. Look at the progress we made from 1 race. This is, no other team has upgraded this far, so we've done really well to save up R&D points right at the start of this season and try and deploy them tactically here to make sure our car's up to scratch. And so now we can very much fight now at the Dutch Grand Prix. I'm very confident we can fight for the very top positions, because look how close it is at the top there. You've got Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull and ourselves so close together already, and it's only going to get closer as all of us now do those final upgrades as we go on through this season and get towards the maxed out cars. So as I've said a few times, give it a few episodes and we'll pretty much be back to how close it was at the very tail end of Season 5 last season, where pretty much the only determining factor for which team would be best, and kind of on top was maybe track to track the kind of car characteristics, which makes things really interesting and also means that the drivers individually can maybe make more of a difference when it's so tight with the cars themselves. But here we are then on board in Q1 at the Dutch Grand Prix qualifying Saturday, and you can see the kind of subtle changes we made there with the kind of inside the halo returning to that neon fluoro yellow and green. And also I've actually got the original helmet that I ran, I think back in Season 3, was it? Or Season 2? So just a little nod, you know, a full nod back to the original team colours. But we make it through into Q2, no issue. Instead, where my sights are set is going to be on this Q2 session and then also Q3. Hopefully we can make it through, but can Hamilton make it through? It looks like, very much so, because at the moment he is actually up in P3. I actually set my first flying lap in Q2 on a set of worn tyres. I set them on the same tyres I did my Q1 lap on to give myself a free set, basically. So now I'm on a new set of tyres for a second run in Q2, but this is going to open me up to be able to do 2 free runs in Q3 on 2 new sets of tyres, because obviously in the past in this series we've had that issue of having to use 2 sets of softs to get through into the top 10 shootout, and that only leaves you with 1 set then in the top 10 shootout. And so basically, obviously, you just have less of a chance because you may make a mistake, you may lock up, you know, whatnot. So it just gives us that kind of buffer and comfort cushion to maybe try and better ourselves in the top 10 shootout. But we make it through, and to my surprise, Lewis Hamilton's made it through. He's up in P. He's beaten me here in this Q2 session. So I don't know what that exactly means. I would like to maybe say, okay, hang on, maybe he's going to improve. Obviously, he got very unlucky last episode by DNFing out of the entire Grand Prix anyway, so we couldn't really see how he was going to do in the end of the GP performance-wise on pure performance. But, you know, maybe this is promising, but at the same time, remember, I've never been the best qualifier, and especially so Zandvoort. Remember last season where I qualified P9, whereas my teammate Gasly was on pole position, so I've never been a great one-lapper, hot lapper around Zandvoort. But in the race, we actually sped up quite a fair bit with that unique 2-stop strategy last season, so I'm still quite quietly confident, but definitely don't read too much into that pace of Hamilton just yet. Let's wait for the race to really see what he's saying in terms of if he's returned to form or not. Although, to say that I've just spent the last minute talking down my qualifying efforts and ability, this lap actually felt very decent this first run across the line. P5, nothing to shout about, but look how close it is here. There is only just over 1/10 separating provisional pole right now, Max Verstappen in the Mercedes, to us in P5. You've got Giovinazzi, Norris and Sainz in between. So the second run is going to be crucial. I've gone purple in the first. Verstappen has gone purple in the second, I think. There might be a Giovinazzi, and then Sainz purple in the last sector. So it's all to play for. Everyone's so equalised around here. Here's Hamilton, actually, we watch on board as he sets his first flyer and goes P6. A decent effort there just to go right behind us. As it stands at the moment. So let's see where that's going to actually take him. I think he may only have, though, 1 run to do, because Hamilton didn't actually go for a first run when all of us did, so that may just be him over. But anyway, we go back to our POV then on this second run, and the first 2 sectors kind of okay, but just not much of an improvement. It's so close, and so we're only barely going to make an improvement here of just a few thousandths of a second across the line there. It is a small improvement. What's it going to be, though, on the grid? It's P7 in the end, as other people speed up way more. So for our 100th Grand Prix, we're going to be in P7, which is maybe not a bad thing. Obviously, my lucky number is number 7. That's why I make my race number with a mod, number 7 in the game, because it's my favourite number. So maybe this can be a good luck token for us on this great landmark and milestone for the team. But it was Leclerc that got pole position. Sainz in second place. The Red Bulls looking a lot stronger this race than they ever did at Bahrain. And last race's race winner, all the way down in P10. Woeful qualifying for him. And Hamilton, actually all things considered, did very well to match us somewhat and get P8 there to be on the same row. So fair play actually to Lewis, and so maybe that's a small sign of improvement. Of course, as I just said earlier, in the race, it's a different story. I think we're going to be able to speed up, and we might be able to try a unique strategy once again like we did in Season 5. Let's go to the grid.
For years, the passionate Dutch fans have been easy to find trackside at races across Europe and throughout the world. Now, at long last, they have a Grand Prix to call their own. It's a warm welcome once again to all of our viewers in the Netherlands and around the globe, as we get underway for the Dutch Grand Prix. Zandvoort circuit then, 14 corners, 10 to the right and 4 to the left, with plenty of steep camber and elevation changes to keep our drivers on their toes throughout the 2.6 mile lap. And watch out for cars making use of the DRS zone into turn 1 to try and overtake. Alongside me to discuss all the action today is Anthony Davidson. Thanks for joining us, Ant, and tell me, you were down in the pit lane earlier. How do you think the track conditions are today?
Well, it's looking a bit cold out there, if I'm honest. These tyres have quite a narrow operating window in terms of the temperatures they need to extract the best grip. So with a cold track surface, it's going to be harder to keep those temperatures up, which will lead to lower grip and maybe more mistakes.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and talented Spaniard Carlos Sainz completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Norris, Daniel Ricciardo, and Giovinazzi. The owner driver, Hamilton, Bottas, and Esteban Ocon. Gasly, De Vries, Alexander Albon, and Stroll, Kvyat, Matsushita, Mick Schumacher, and George Russell, Giotto, Latifi, Magnussen, and Jack Aitken. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
Okay, then here we are ahead of the race on the grid, looking at the race strategy, and if you cast your minds back to Season 5 at this GP, you'll remember we had a massive, intense battle with Charles Leclerc, and both of us did a two-stop, and both of us stormed through everyone to come 1-2. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the win that time around. We came second place, but the two-stop, that race showed to us, if you watch back that episode, the front tyres absolutely cooked on the soft compounder tyre, and it meant that the two-stop ended up being so much quicker for us, but also Leclerc as well, as we're so much quicker than everyone this time last season at this Grand Prix. So let's go for it again, basically. Why not? Why not learn from the success of last season and go for it? And maybe this time, unlike in Season 5, maybe we could overturn Leclerc or whoever it is and go for the race win on our 100th Grand Prix. That would be quite poetic, but it's obviously going to be a tough fight. But from P7, with how close the grid is, why not? Especially if that two-stop works as well as it did last season. So let's go for gold, and if we can't get it, then I guess we'll be broke, but let's try it. And so with that, let's go and rev up to 5 red lights for the 100th time in this series, and as a team for the Dutch Grand Prix. 5 lights are out, and we're underway. It's a good getaway. Slow one from Ricciardo. We get pinched in a little bit by the Ferrari on the right-hand side. Giovinazzi, Leclerc still leads from Verstappen to Carlos Sainz. We're trying our best to hang in there. Ricciardo's given us a good old scrap in turn 1. Bit of contact was even made, but we somehow managed to find our way through on the inside. Couldn't quite get Giovinazzi though. He had the better track position on the inside of turn 1. All stays put then at the forefront of this grid. We've got Charles Leclerc leading the way from his pole position. Second place is Verstappen in the Mercedes car. Third place, Carlos Sainz in the leading Red Bull. And then you've got Lando Norris, Giovinazzi, and we're chasing after as best we can, and hopefully trying to drop Ricciardo, who at the moment is actually holding up Hamilton a little bit there. You can see the gap is building to the Red Bull car, and Hamilton doing an okay job. Obviously, you know, he didn't even finish last race, so at the moment it's going well for him. Let's hope he can get to the end, and even if he can finish there, that will be decent, you know, just scoring some points, because I really worry that if Hamilton continues to have DNFs and bad luck like we saw last race and like we've seen in previous seasons, and if he performs as badly as he has done for the last few seasons in the Mercedes car, you know, it is going to be very hard, because I'm going to be fighting every other team with one hand behind my back in terms of the Constructors' Championship. You know, those extra points for the second car, they add up, especially in the season where it's so tight. Speaking of second cars doing a little bit poorly, both Ocon and Gasly, very woeful. I actually didn't mention the entire qualifying, sorry, but Gasly got knocked out in Q2 to say that he was the lead Mercedes at Bahrain who overtook Verstappen. So yeah, both Frenchmen, the two guys that were 1-2 last episode, are actually down in P11 and P12 as it stands right now. So they have some major catching up to do and have to really dig deep to try and come back in this Grand Prix. But meanwhile for us, on towards lap number 3, Giovinazzi very defensive into turn 1 because he knows we've got some pace here as we try and go around the outside. Easy does it, feather the throttle, wheel to wheel stuff. Easy does it. We swing through on the outside, that right hander, before going through the carousel corner on the left. and we're up into P5. Very nicely done, actually. Giovinazzi gave us the room, respect to him, and so now can we try and get on the back of Lando Norris, maybe immediately on lap number 4. Can't quite make the dive into turn 1. I had a little thought about it, but the McLaren looking pretty secure in that position in turn 1 at least, but can we try and set up a move maybe in the latter stage of Sector 1, because it just looks like the McLaren's not got too much pace though at the moment. And on this very corner exit, launching off that using plenty of ERS as well, and Norris looks a little bit susceptible. We're going to go for the move. It's very close. We make a bit of contact, but we send it down the inside there. We're trying to go side by side in a place where it's unbelievably hard to do so, and no surprise, we can't quite do it, but we gave it a good old shot, and we're just making sure he knows that we're in the mirrors, basically. And so on to lap number 5, though, with the launch off the banking. DRS open now on the inside. Surely we can get this. He locks up. We're going to be side by side. Oh, he's drifted, actually. He's lost the rear end as he's made an AI mistake. They're always cool to see the AI make more human-like mistakes, but he's going to come back at this. As well as Giovinazzi, we've got a horrendous launch off that left-hander, as we've done so many times in previous seasons. The AI are so good compared to me in Sector 2 and 3. I can't quite understand how they rotate the car so well. And so to that effect now, Giovinazzi is going right round the outside at the banking on the final corner to try and re-overtake us. We both got Lando Norris in our back pocket, but Giovinazzi's giving us a good old scrap here. The Italian really not wanting to give up this fight, as we're still side by side, surely through the next right-hander. No, we're still going to be in it as the Italian keeps his foot in. We gave him the room and the same respect he gave us in the previous fight, and thankfully on the exit of that corner we get the jump, use a bit of ERS to get off the corner, and we're able to actually finish that move off. But some mega fighting early on in this Grand Prix. But in stark contrast at the moment, it's pretty calm then for the race leader Leclerc, who's now got a bit of a gap to Verstappen, who's being pressurized more so by the Red Bull in 3rd place there. And now of course we've got some clean air to try and chase after those guys, but as I stated, as was the case last season and pretty much every single season we've come to this circuit, the front tyres are going to start to cook a bit now, and that front left especially is going to start screaming, as you're about to see now on lap number 8, which is going to be the lap we're going to come into. So not much else to really show you on this first stint, trying my best to maintain the pace ahead of Giovinazzi and Norris, but that's been the story. I haven't actually been able to try and chase after Sainz or Verstappen at all. We've just been kind of holding up Giovinazzi because the front tyres completely just cooked, like it was brick orange there pretty much before it started cooling down again into that chicane. So we're definitely to come in now, and hopefully we have the same sort of pace jump that we had last season, where the medium tyre seemed like to be the much better race tyre, not only for us, but also remember, Leclerc, I don't know if he's going to do that again this season. I don't know, he's way out in the lead right now, so he may try and control the race on that one stop. So I don't know, for now it's kind of an unknown if I'm going to be the only man on a 2-stop. If we are, that's a little bit worrying, because that's a very bold call then from us, but I just keep thinking back to last season, how quick we were, how quick Leclerc was as well on that 2-stop. Like, I just think we need to go for it, because you've got to learn from the previous experiences. If we ignored it, I think we'd be, making a mistake really. So we're going to go for it. We've already set a fast lap for the Grand Prix, so clearly already showing the medium tyre has much better pace than those worn soft tyres for us. And around lap 13, eventually those top guys will now make their first and only pit stop of the Grand Prix, remember, onto a set of hard tyres for Sainz, Verstappen, and I can confirm Leclerc is also, unlike he did last season, he is also on the 1-stop. So I am indeed the only man trying this 2-stop, at least in the top 10. So to use the phrase we said at the very start of the Grand Prix, we are very much now going for gold or broke, because no one else is doing this. So it is going to be either a calamity or a big booster for our race strategy and for our race position. So to that effect, we go down the inside and make a darting move on Carlos Sainz, a crucial move. We have to get past not only these two, we have to get past Leclerc as quickly as we can, because it's not about overtaking them now, it's about overtaking them and then getting that gap to get that second pit stop in, and then also driving the wheels off this car in that second and final stint on the medium tyre. So at the moment, it's just a case of trying to pass these guys as quickly as possible. But at the moment, we're getting held up a little bit by Verstappen, although he's lost the rear end. Oh, Verstappen! Oh, Verstappen's lost the rear end completely, and he's spun into the wall. What on earth was that? I have not seen an AI mistake that bad since I think maybe the Hungarian Grand Prix back last season or season 4, was it? Where, remember, Bottas span into the pit wall mid-straight. That was very much a copycat of that, as Verstappen just lost the rear end completely and puts it in the wall. We make a lovely little pass that was on Albon to smoothly get past the Racing Point car. So we now find ourselves gifted into P2 then rather than P3, and it's all due to this on board from Verstappen. Just take a look at this. He loses the rear end and he just doesn't even bother trying to catch it for some reason. Or he tries to catch it, but he just can't, and it looks like a slow-mo spin towards the wall. And then he parks it up, maybe even makes contact with the McLaren there. Of course he's held up Hamilton. He's held up his previous teammate. He's held up my current teammate. This man, Lewis, cannot catch a break in this series at all. As if he's just lost 2 positions. Hamilton. He's lost 2 positions due to Verstappen parking up there. He cannot catch a break at all. And now we've got Gasly in the other Mercedes car, Verstappen's teammate. He's actually, used that to his advantage because Ocon got held up behind the Dutchman. And so Gasly's used that to overtake and leapfrog the McLaren and also Hamilton, of course. And so Gasly now, once again, is the lead Mercedes car, as Verstappen's had to make an extra pit stop now. So, I don't know, maybe he felt some sympathy for one of my former teammates from Season 3, of course. Maybe he felt bad. Maybe he felt worried that I was the only car on a 2-stop and he wanted to join me. Probably not, but yeah, I mean, absolute madness. Crazy scenes there. I love AI mistakes. It's really sick to see AI making mistakes like that. You know, it just makes it a bit more real, a bit more silly as well, and a bit more chaotic for us. So Verstappen's race may just be over, but ours is very much not so. We've still got a full third of this race to go, and that last stint on medium tyres. But first of all, we have to go overtake Leclerc for maybe the first time in this race. I hope this is the first out of maybe a second time, because we're going to pass him for the race lead. But of course, we are making one more stop. He is not, so he didn't really put up too much of a fight there. Although, saying that though, when we were chasing him, you may have seen on that clip whilst I was talking about that whole Verstappen situation, he did have a step out on the rear at turn 1. So already Leclerc is feeling some tyre wear on those hards, which is a really good thing for me, not so much for him. So here we are then. We come in a little bit earlier than actually I wanted to, but I saw there was 3 cars of an Alfa Romeo and 2 Williams, I think. Basically a load of traffic that I did not want to hit. I couldn't afford to lose any time trying to overtake them, even with blue flags. So I've come in earlier. It's the medium tyre. Shouldn't really matter too much, 1 lap here or there. It's a pretty consistent and pretty decent race tyre, as I mentioned before, around Zandvoort. And we thankfully come out just ahead of Leclerc's teammate, Antonio Giovinazzi. So we've got some clean air now to work with. 14 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Fresh medium tyres. The others ahead of us on hards already, maybe feeling some tyre wear, question mark. So let's just go ahead down and try and bang in those purple lap times. As Nick de Vries, unfortunately, one of the other home favourites of this GP, the Dutchman in the AlphaTauri, of course, moving to AlphaTauri this season, is out of this one, unfortunately, there. So it's really not been a great day in the office for the home favourites. Very much like Silverstone sometimes, a lot of time with British drivers. The home race is never a good fairy tale story in Formula 1, but oh wow, okay. I was literally just saying that, and now Verstappen is actually fully retired at this Grand Prix. And by the way, this retirement for Verstappen is actually completely unrelated to his crash. It's a complete mechanical failure. So double whammy. Even if Verstappen had not spun, I probably think he would have actually retired the entire time, because I'm pretty sure when the game decides an AI is going to retire like that with a mechanical failure, I'm pretty sure it's like hard-coded into the race. So no matter what happens, that AI will always retire. So very, very lucky stuff there for the Dutchman, for both Dutchmen, really. But back to our POV then, 3 laps later, 11 laps to go now in this Grand Prix. We're trying to fly through as fast as we can these backmarker cars, and surprise, surprise, Mick Schumacher, the Ferrari Junior, does not get out of the way as quick as he can for me, and kind of maybe a little bit helps out, obviously, the Ferrari senior driver of Leclerc, who's still in the lead. But right now, at the moment, we still need to try and pass another car in the form of Carlos Sainz. So let's forget about Leclerc, first of all. We need to actually first pass the Red Bull, and then we can see what we can do with the Ferrari man. But here we go, chasing off the Spaniard. He goes defensive to the inside. We've got DRS, though, deploying ERS across the line. We try and pinch him into turn 1 a little bit too aggressively, though, and he actually sticks his nose in there and tries to fight. But in the end of it, his tyres are so much worn out than mine are. Obviously, my tyres are only 6 laps worn, and so we're able to easily out-traction him. And so here we are then. We've got about, what, 9 laps to go in this Grand Prix. We've got just under 6 seconds of a gap to Leclerc. This is going to take all the speed I can muster. I'm going to need to dig deep and just set lap time after lap time to try and catch Leclerc. It's possible because, remember, we and Leclerc had some literal lightning pace in Season 5. So we just need to recreate that and try and get into the zone, as they say, for athletes, basically. And just try and channel that energy, that tunnel vision of chasing after the Ferrari man. But away from us, whilst we're just pushing lap after lap against our own Delta time, we've actually got some great action a little bit further down the road between Pierre Gasly and the Red Bull of Ricciardo and Ocon potentially, as Gasly tries to go around the outside then of Ricciardo, the lead Mercedes, the only Mercedes left in this Grand Prix, and Gasly with a great overtake, finishing it off around the outside of the Aussie man. And now can he chase after Ocon, the man he came second to obviously last race at the Bahrain Grand Prix? So, you know, I was worried that Gasly may have lost his kind of, you know, killer instinct, his pace, moving away from our team to the Silver Arrows, not being under our wing anymore, no longer our teammate, affected by our HQ facilities. But it looks like he very much is still the same aggressive driver. He can't quite make the move on that lap, but he's going to go again, and eventually on the very next one, round the outside he goes, and he goes and overtakes the McLaren of Norris, by the way. Sorry, I actually said it was Ocon earlier. It was actually Norris. Ocon's a lot further back in this Grand Prix, my bad. But yeah, Gasly, I don't want to say it too early because it's early days, but it's looking like he's yet again actually still strong. So moving away from our team has not hurt him at all. So is it going to be another fight with him, maybe, for the championship, along with others, maybe? Well, it's too early to say, but, you know, cautiously, it's looking quite tasty there. But what might be even tastier right now at the moment is this final stage of this Grand Prix. We've got 5 laps to go in this one. Look at the top left. The gap is within 2 seconds now to Leclerc. So sooner rather than later, you know, maybe about lap 33, we could be within 1 second of the Ferrari man. And just like last season, I'm feeling the groove on the faster compounder tyre. And unlike last season, Leclerc, he's not on the 2-stop, he's on the hard. So we've actually got the advantage this time. So can we get revenge for Season 5 at the Dutch Grand Prix? Can we overtake Leclerc and get the race win we so nearly got this time in Season 5? Well, here we go. We're going on to the second last lap of the Grand Prix, lap 35, and we're well within 1 second now. And at the same time as well, I think I just saw a slow car there. Yeah, an Alfa Romeo who's going to be a back marker. So he's going to be under blue flags, but it's such a tight circuit that he's surely going to hold up Leclerc a little bit. So as we go into the carousel corner, the left-hander try and take a wide line to get that real good exit. Going to deploy ERS all off that corner and continue to deploy it all the way down into the next fast right. We're going to go for the very bold move round the outside on the second last lap. Bit of contact made at over 180 miles per hour. We swing through on the outside. Leclerc comes back. This is a straight fight for the race lead now between myself and the Ferrari on our 100th Grand Prix. Could we get the race lead? Leclerc's got it back, but we're still fighting. We're still going. I don't think either of us have got DRS there on that straight. We go early on the brakes, try and cut in tight. Let's be patient. We've got the ERS deploy. We're going to get DRS. Surely this is game, set and match. This is checkmate in Formula 1 chess that we played today with the 2-stop v the 1-stop, because now we've got DRS, got the banking exit, ERS deploying across the line. Here we go to the inside of turn 1. He's going to defend very well, Leclerc is. He really tries as much as he can to maintain the race lead, but in the end, the tyre compound we've got, the yellow wall medium tyre, just gives us that extra edge, that extra traction. And so we come through the last few corners here on the last lap on our 100th Grand Prix as a Formula 1 team on this game, and we're going to win this 100th Grand Prix. We win the Dutch Grand Prix in some style. The 2 stops won out again, and I can't believe it. It is written in the stars. I was so determined to get that race win once we were within 5 seconds, because my oh my, what a present for 100.
And with that, we wrap up yet another incredible Grand Prix weekend. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
Well, Crofty, this was won through an abundance of speed and an abundance of skillful overtakes. Inside, outside, cutting underneath, we saw it all today. And it's really nice to see a Grand Prix won in that manner. A race, surely, that will satisfy the purists today, I think.
Here comes your top three making their way down to the podium for what can only be described as a fantastic day for Formula One.
So there we have it. We've actually done it. We've actually done it. What did I say? Lucky number 7 grid slot. P7 on the grid. And we've come through to win our 100th race in Formula One in this series. Absolutely awesome. Awesome stuff there. That was such a fun race. That was as fun, if not more, obviously, because we got the race win. But it was just as fun as it was last season. You know, the 2-stop strategy around here is so good, because that's how much tyre wear there is, even for the AI, and that's how much the tyre carcass temperature matters, and also traffic as well, because there was so many back markers, because it's such a short lap that you know, it just invites aggression with that 2-stop, and it's worked out for us. But look at this, 100 Grand Prix, things may change in the pecking order and whatnot, but some things never change. Myself and Pierre Gasly, my previous teammate, we're still 1-2 in the championship now. We find ourselves at the top, and Gasly's actually in second place. How about that? Very nice. But, as I said, Hamilton, he's only scored 1 point today. He came home in P10. So despite us winning the race and having a pretty good race last time, we're still down in P4 in the constructors, 11 points off. Obviously, you know, it's not that bad, but you can get what I mean by very much, I think, unless Hamilton has a miracle recovery and, you know, and booster. I don't know if you guys have any suggestions of what we could do, unless, you know, barring, you know, doing some very dodgy race strategies to make sure we get some points. It is very much going to be a one hand behind my back kind of fight in the constructors. And of course, unlike other previous F1 games, with my team, because it's our own team, I care a lot more about the constructors. It's not just about the drivers. I do actually want to try and win the constructors if we can, and it's going to be a lot harder if it's just one of us, but it won't matter in a way at this moment in time, because I'm just reveling in what was a fantastic Grand Prix for number 100. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did to race it, to commentate it, to edit it, everything. Guys, if you did enjoy that, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're only around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula One content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.